This feels like a pretty significant hump.
Who doesn't love a significant hump? And now we're off the air permanently, forever, canceled. Bye. That was it. We had one chance.
Significant hump and we're done.
Writing it down for a fantasy team.
Yes, we should. Yes.
I have one main takeaway. One thing I'm thinking about the most. But I'm happy to let you go first if you want. I mean, I don't know exactly how you're feeling or what you're thinking at all. I know that it worked out for you on the bike. You said yesterday 10 o'clock is the perfect time for me to listen because I'm on the bike and I won't be watching Homeland.
I felt like I felt like it was exactly 45 minutes long, maybe 47 minutes long, because it started a little early, I think. Because I was shooting for 10 to be on the bike by 10 a.m. and I felt like it just was a minute or two early. Anyway, it ended and I had then time to watch a 45-minute episode of Homeland and was done with my workout at 11:30.
Remember the days when your time was not necessarily perfectly aligned with everyone else's?
Yeah.
But now, like, your phone is going to tell you exactly what time it is.
Right. There's no like my watch was slow.
No, there's no getting that wrong.
That doesn't work. I mostly. I think we know Pegula offered an explanation for why he hasn't been available to the media that is to be respected. But like generally speaking, I still think I respect that he wanted to be there today, but I think it's best that he don't appear. Because the most awkward thing about the whole thing was, can I interrupt? To me, I'm not inclined to singularly be in disbelief about him making a decision based on how emotional the locker room was. Like it probably isn't great process if that's like solely how you do it, but it's to boil it down to that is to ignore the accumulation of all the previous heartbreaks. Like I think there can be a moment in life where you are standing in a familiar surrounding that you've been in before and just say, I don't think we can keep doing this. And I think sometimes taking time and stepping back and being pragmatic about it can steer you almost subconsciously to what's most comfortable. And what is most comfortable is to not make a big change. And maybe that's how we ended up here in the first place, with it getting to 9 years instead of it ending after 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 even. But I just think the complaining about the call, the roster, he doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think he leaves Beane in some tough spots during the course of that media availability. And, it felt sort of like the whole week has been, which is what are we really doing? What are we trying to spin? What are we trying to get across? And I think if today had happened without the preceding 48 hours worth of us arguing about the roster and them spinning big media, Ian Rappaport, to like, oh, well, there was disagreement and all this sort of stuff, I think today could have gone down a lot smoother. But I'm skeptical about them arriving at the conclusion that they made public today, that Terry felt they were emotionally wrecked and I need to do something. Because I think they tried another approach when they first dismissed McDermott and underestimated vastly how emotional the fan base would be about it, in part because of how they handled it. And they handled it in a way that tells me they didn't think they would get an emotional reaction from the fan base. Maybe they dipped into this show for 15 minutes on Mondays after a loss and thought everybody wanted McDermott fired. When I think sitting in these chairs, we've always suspected that that's some portion of the fan base that's vocal and loud. But a lot of people, I think, respected the job that was done and would have wanted to stay the course.
I don't know if I really care that much about exactly when the light bulb went on for Pegula about this idea, like when he decided to do it, whether it was in the locker room or after or before. I feel like it's super obvious now that there was a problem between McDermott and Beane, or McDermott and Pegula, but McDermott and Beane, probably. that's come across in the press releases by both the Bills and from Sean. Like, neither mentions the other. We've wondered about this. You've been a leader in this, wondered about it all season, whether McDermott is dissatisfied in some way with who he's got. And I think today just made that, it took nothing away from that take. My number one thing is, I cannot believe how clean this break is between the two parties, between the Bills and McDermott. I can't believe it. I can't believe, even if it's not genuine, which tells you that it's real. I mean, the fact that they're not even pretending that, we still love you. Like, it's such a clean break. And that's really incredible. I mean, we're not used to this Bills run compares with what in our history? I mean, the 90s Bills, the Sabres have popped their heads up like a, whack-a-mole game a couple of times along the way. But really, this is about as long a period of success as we've ever enjoyed as fans.
Yeah. If you tack on the Flutie, Johnson, Wade years onto the 90s, that's about the same time frame, right? That's 88 to 97. So it's
99.
It's close. 99, that's right. Yeah. Anyway.
Regardless, it's really incredible to me. There's almost like there's spite in the air. And I can't believe it. I mean, the Bills may have not been this, we're moving on quite to this extent since Doug Marrone. And he quit. There was probably more, we appreciate you, maybe not Marrone because of his quitting, but other guys, it just feels so like it really didn't happen this 9 years. And I'm not coming at this from a particular standpoint of, loving McDermott. It's just like, man, the Bills went from nowhere to whatever you want to say they are now and have been for the last several years. And the owner and the GM talk like it didn't really happen. And I mean, everything is veiled. Every reference to what has happened really just doesn't give McDermott any credit for it. That's how it sounds to me, and that's, to me, incredible. Because I think the worst that I would tell you, I mean, surprise, we're asking everybody, we're taking questions from fans and different radio shows, are you shocked? I'm saying, I'm not shocked, but I'm very surprised that this happened. That's what Sal said. I mean, that's what Eric Wood said. That's how I think most of us are in this. But it's incredible to me that it doesn't sound like you would expect it to have sounded after this 9 years, which is, I mean, almost to the point of maybe not tears, but just having a tough time processing, understanding that we're moving in a different direction here. It doesn't sound like it's any trouble at all to them.
Right.
They're just, I think
that's a very good point.
I think they decided a long time ago that somebody was going to go. And I think it was always probably McDermott because, as I've said for a couple days, it's so much easier for the GM not only to be swayed, or for the owner to be swayed by the GM, but to sort of go forward looking for a coach instead of looking for a coach's boss, in essence. And so, I mean, I think whether it was Saturday night or some other time, this was coming. And I think you could probably have discerned from Allen and McDermott after the game, and maybe other players on Sunday, that they knew. So maybe that's wrong, but I just can't believe how fast the Bills have moved away from him. It's just we don't want to give him. They don't want to give him any credit. I mean, and Coleman being such a flashpoint is amazing. That's really where, if you want to say Terry Pegula shouldn't do press conferences, Coleman is the reason why today.
Right.
He's on the team.
It's a lot like some of the things I said about Beane, sort of inflicting scrutiny and derision and criticism on himself by not being able to control his temper or misreading the room. I think the initial reaction to the firing, there's some of that, which I referenced yesterday, the thing about the trade deadline, and I almost got Jalen Waddle as that, and quintessentially, of course, the April appearance on our morning show was that. Keon Coleman from the owner today is another version of that. You did not need to complicate that situation any further by making him such a focal point of this thing. And that's I don't blame Beane for that. He's not the one who, he was asked about him, and I'll bet could have crafted an answer that we would never have talked about for 2 seconds. But the owner can't help himself. He's got to take another shot at, and like whatever nuance there is to like the coaching staff as opposed to Sean McDermott being the one who wanted that pick. You know how that lands on everybody listening. If it gets clarified later, no one cares. He said the coaching staff wanted him. Who's the coaching staff? That's who heads the coaching staff. It's Sean McDermott. So like the guy that we just fired wanted our biggest problem.
Or Brady, who is interviewing for the job.
Yeah.
Like, who else could it be besides the two of them, one or the other?
Right.
I mean, that's a question for like whether McDermott really sticks his head in all the way on offensive players. Yeah. And you get that little. It's not the headline quote, but you get that little comment from Pegula in the course of that answer on Coleman about how Beane takes the heat for some reason. He says, what world is Pegula in where he is incredulous to how the general manager of a sports team would get criticized for a draft pick? Like, I think if I were a sports owner, completely, pretty much beyond reproach, right? I don't have to answer to anything. I just get to sit here and my team, my asset makes money constantly, no matter what I do wrong, doesn't change anything. It's just more and more money all the time. I wouldn't want to talk to Sal. I would think I'd be above that. No, not to pick Sal out. We love Sal. But just anybody.
Right.
I wouldn't want to talk. I wouldn't feel like I needed to answer to anybody. And
right, I'm paying you a couple $1 million a year to do that for me.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I would probably feel very possessive of my decisions and how I got to this point in life. And really, why do I need to answer to Bulldog? He doesn't exactly sort of like forcefully come off that way. But when he says that Beane takes heat for the Keon Coleman pick for some reason, what world is he in? Like, when we met him, when he showed up, he talked about listening to the station all the time. What world could you be in if you're listening to fans talk about the Bills or talk about sports and be miffed at the idea that a general manager would take heat for a draft pick? That's what always happens everywhere. That's what always happens. That's how it works. It doesn't have to always be right or fair, but how could he not possibly understand that the GM, that Beane would take criticism for drafting Coleman? It's a reflection of, I'm here, you're down there, and really almost maybe any criticism is unfair of me, of us.
Because you really don't understand how this all works.
Right. Like, you just, there was like no humility today. None. There was no, with respect to the roster comments and this move, and just like, do they always have to know more than we do? Do they always have to? Pegula can't understand. He doesn't get how Beane would be criticized for drafting Keon Coleman. He doesn't get that. Like, he has to step in, which is embarrassing to Beane. Like, Beane got there later on, like, that was my draft pick.
Yeah.
And he can't, as I tweeted this morning, my one tweet about this press conference was, Beane can't really talk to you about some of this stuff because Pegula is sitting next to him. Like, he really can't. I'd enjoy a second Brandon, just Beane next time, where he can maybe kind of go, because he's done that mostly really well in his career, I think. Like, he's good conversation, and he's pretty forthcoming most of the time, and even when it burns him, like, he isn't hiding, but here's Pegula, who steps in and says, no, Beane really didn't make that pick.
Yeah.
And for some reason he gets heat. That's the reason he gets heat, is because you didn't say this until today.
And today, voicing it today, there's reason to be skeptical about how true it is.
Sure.
Because it's very convenient. I mean, it's always, the guy that left wanted the guy, right? That's it.
Which means what for Coleman now?
That's the big question. to me. That's why, maybe it's not the biggest deal in the world, but if that's somebody that they still want, like Beane went on to elaborate later, that they still want to count on, that they're hoping to get something out of, you did not need to treat him that way in the public square. I mean, he's deserved the criticism he's gotten. The player himself has been warranted, for forcing the team to discipline him as often as they have. So he bears that responsibility, but it did not need to be aired today. Like, he's just catching stray bullets at a news conference about his coach getting fired, and it just is not. Just didn't need to happen. It's unnecessary collateral damage that you set the mine and stepped on it yourself. Who does that?
Yeah.
That's why, like, my overarching point yesterday and, like, today did not do anything to dissuade it is I feel shook about their leadership, because that was on display today, and it was often contradictory and needlessly self-inflicting damage. And that doesn't look like the best place to go get a job right now, I think. I mean, there are certainly things to like about the job, and they'll find a coach, and he'll have qualifications, and then we'll, sit here and, like, we know that means we can tell if he's going to succeed or not, and of course we'll have no idea till they get to next January.
I think today should have been super easy. I've never for 1 minute wanted to be in PR, because I know myself, and I know that it would just drive me crazy because I'd have to lie a lot. Like, it's just, I've never aspired to that in the slightest. But if I were, and you had their ears, like, I'm not saying that somebody wouldn't have made this exact effort from the Bills, but it should have been so easy. The proverbial playoff wall, fine, great, makes sense.
Yep.
Anybody out here can understand that. Anybody who follows sports knows examples of that, can understand that. We went to the playoffs this many times and never made a Super Bowl. That's it. Like, that's perfectly reasonable. Fine, great. And then the rest of it is you show appreciation for the work and how McDermott really took your franchise from A to, like, not even B, way past B. He is maybe more responsible, maybe Allen, but I mean, he's the head coach.
He elevated the entire production.
And you spend the rest of the morning not losing sight of that and recognizing that people also really want to hear, like, some actual acknowledgement of McDermott's success. And that's it. Like, we hit the wall, we didn't make it, and you don't get the job forever. You don't have to be blunt like I'm sort of being as I'm running off, but obviously, like, that's it. And when it comes to questions about the roster, I mean, are you in touch? How could you possibly insist or maintain that it's actually still a great roster? No one thinks that. Who's their fourth best player? I mean, you could take all day. Who's their fourth best player? I've got Allen, of course. I've got the rushing leader. All right? And I've got Dawkins.
Benford, maybe.
All right. What is, how do you measure a great roster? Depth? Backups? I mean, just, you got to have players. You got to have big name like they did 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
All over the field.
Giving Beane credit for their being, it's like he wants to give Beane credit for their being actual, just a physical body to call up from the practice squad to play in games, which should be a credit to your coach that you still managed to win 12 games and get as close as you got and lose on what you think was a bad call in the end, or maybe even a series of them, but whatever. I don't need to split hairs. But those two things don't jive. Like, every team has guys that are eligible to be called up from the practice squad because that's what happens. But the point is, do you have enough, the Slay Ingram thing, for example, like, that was a guy they trusted that knew the system, and he got poached because you tried to swing big for someone else, and you didn't, maybe you didn't dot your I's and T's before you made the move or whatever happened, but you got burned. So, I don't know, crediting Beane for having Dane Jackson around, but not crediting McDermott for getting through a season where those guys played meaningful snaps almost every week. They were so banged up. Does not really jive. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. It's one of the things that is contradictory about what we watched this morning, I think.
Well, we'll see what happens. Is it, in fact, different than it would have been if they had a sort of a normal press conference and did all the things, we, the experts, would have recommended? I don't know. Like, it's still a Josh Allen-led team, and maybe they'll be just fine. But, oof, the Sabres are the Bills are the Sabres now? A little bit, maybe?
Well, at least Beane, I said this yesterday, and there was a clip from our show that made the rounds where it maybe didn't sound as clear as I wanted it to sound. Like, Beane is not Kevin Adams. Like, he's been in this job, he's qualified, he's done the job literally for many, many years running here. But the ownership piece that you worry about all the time with the Sabres sort of peaked up today and reminded you, McDermott kind of shielded us from that largely.
Yeah.
It was he and Beane that were going to conduct these things, and Pegula was not really ever heard from. And again, there are respectable reasons for that, but all the better. But now he came up, and the results are kind of they can shake you a little bit.
A little scary.
Yeah.
803-0550. Your call's next. Sal Capaccio